Hi, my name is Mitra. I'm a servant. I serve through teaching, coaching, consulting, or any other way that I can find to share what I know with those who want to know. And this Lights On podcast is one of those ways. It was created with consciousness and mindful living in heart. So join us as we travel through many roads of learning and transformation together. And if you enjoy our podcast, please give us feedback by rating us 5-star and share us with others if you think they may benefit from it. On behalf of my team, I thank you for your presence. This week's episode is about integration of the mind and the heart. I talk about how we have, most of us, have in really overactivated minds. Our minds are our survival mind, our logical mind, our thinking mind is quite activated and overactivated. It's always opining and it's always commenting and it's always talking. And the problem with that is that we think that's the only voice that we need to listen to, and we ignore our imaginative heart. So the logical mind becomes the only voice, the only advisor, if you like, in our life. And in this short episode, which was part of a class on imagination, I talk about the integration and giving voice to our imaginative heart so that there is a balance and a sense of integration of the mind and the heart. Let's take a listen together. Yes. Thank you, Nikki. And that's exactly what the invitation was, that allow imagination to be an ongoing script that you're writing, because there is an ongoing script of fear happening. So we need a balance for it. So you need to have a conversation between the logical mind and imaginative heart. And these are symbolic words I'm using. It's not like imagination resides like here and fear lives here, even though I think they do. But that's not the important part. What's important is to have this conversation between this, because when the only person speaking is your frightened mind, then of course that would be the only voice in your life. And I like the fact that, Nikki, you're saying that as you're going about your life, your imagination is adding to the story. Oh, by the way, you could also add this. How about that? That means that you're keeping, because the frightened mind is always working. We don't have any fear of that not working unless we have a mental condition and disease. And I mean that not in a sarcastic way, that there is a condition that maybe that faculty does not work. But for our functioning people that are here in this class, that will be working all the time. We don't need to ask the frightened mind and say, excuse me, could you please tell us what you think? Frightened mind it's like a character that opens the door and starts talking, needs no invitation, needs no suggestion. It just says what it wants to say. What we need to be proactive about is to make sure that we hear about the other party. And that's what I mean by saying giving voice to your imagination. In another life, I was an adjudicator in Canada, which meant that adjudicator is like a judge in that system for a very specific part of the law. So in one side, I had the government and its attorneys, and on the other side, I had the people. So the government attorney was an expert. That's what they did for a living. They would do it like, 10 a day. They were an expert. My job was to make sure that people are heard properly, because they knew the procedure. They knew what to object. They knew how to present. But usually these people were like average people who had no idea. They were frightened to be in a courtroom and they didn't know what to do. So my job, and I give you the connection, my job was to say, okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. I heard you. Now, tell me about it. And then he would or she would object. And I say, okay, just give me a time. for the next 10 minutes, this person needs to talk. And I would even lead sometimes because I knew they were frightened and wouldn't understand the question. By lead, I mean not lead their answers, but lead the question and clarify the question. Why did I do that? Because there was an uneven, unjust positions of power. One was an expert, powerful attorney, and one was a frightened person sitting there, probably never ever showed up in a courtroom and didn't know what to say. And a lot of things was on stake, for them. A lot of things they were risking to be there because they may lose this and lose that. Our aware self is like that adjudicator that I was in that room. Don't worry about the frightened mind. It knows what it's doing. It's an expert. But make sure that your imagination, your softer part, the part that has not been formed yet, also has a say. Otherwise, your life will be run by this frightened mind who knows exactly what it's doing. It's an expert, has been trained, and has many, many years of experience in running the show. Your job is to make sure you hear both. That's what integration is. We don't want this part to be quiet because the frightened mind sometimes needs to alert us and tell us there is danger. We have use for that. We don't want to silence it. We just don't want it to be the only voice. We want to make sure there's a balance of this part and that part, integration of these two. That's my suggestion. Hope this episode answered the question or two for you, or provoked and inspired questions in you. I'm so grateful you showed up and listened up. Until the next time, be well and stay curious.